I'm Dr. Elena Vargas, and for more than 2 decades, I've chased the shadows of the world's most elusive giants, megafauna that time forgot, hidden in pockets of the earth, where evolution dances to its own rhythm. As a primatologist and explorer, I've led expeditions into the heart of forgotten rainforests, scaled volcanic peaks on isolated atolls, and documented creatures that blur the line between myth and reality. But nothing compares to Skull Island. It's a place shrouded in perpetual fog, where ancient ruins crumble under the weight of vines thicker than my arm, and the jungle pulses with life that's both beautiful and deadly. My team was there for a conservation survey, mapping out threats to the ecosystem, old poacher traps rusting in the undergrowth, natural sinkholes that swallow the unwary, and seismic rumbles that shake the ground like the island's breathing. We'd heard reports, unusual tremors, followed by animal calls that weren't quite right, deep, anguished, echoing through the mist like a plea. Protocol was clear: no solo ventures into the uncharted zones. The risks were too high: aggressive wildlife, unstable terrain, the kind of encounters that end careers. Or lives, I knew that. I'd written those rules myself, but something pulled at me, deeper than logic. It started in my childhood, poring over dusty books about lost worlds, dreaming of bridging the gap between us and them. And then, the recent loss, my mentor, gone too soon in a similar wild place. It reignited that fire, a vow to protect what others might abandon. Those sounds, they haunted me. As dusk fell, painting the sky in bruised purples, I couldn't wait for the team. I grabbed my pack, slipped into the fog alone, the damp air clinging to my skin like a warning. The jungle whispered secrets, leaves brushing my face, the distant rumble growing louder. I had no idea I was stepping into a legend, one that would test everything I believed. The shadows deepened as I pushed through the thickening undergrowth, the fog wrapping around me like a living thing, muffling my footsteps on the spongy earth. Every sense was on edge, the sharp scent of rotting leaves mixing with something metallic like old blood. My heart thumped steadily at first, but as the ground trembled beneath me, doubt crept in. What was I doing? The team was miles back at camp, safe. But those calls, they grew more desperate, pulling me forward. Then through a tangle of vines, I saw it. A massive pit, camouflaged so perfectly it could have claimed me too. At its bottom, ensnared in rusted chains and jagged stakes from some ancient poacher's nightmare, was King Kong. He was real, towering even in captivity, his fur matted with dirt and blood, muscles straining against the bonds as he roared, the sound vibrating through my bones like thunder. Pain twisted his features, those enormous limbs thrashing futilely, sending dirt cascading down the walls. Terror hit me like a wave. This was the legend, the destroyer of worlds in stories told to scare explorers away. My mind screamed to flee, images of crushed bones, of the island's wrath incarnate. But then I saw the wounds, the way the chains bit into his flesh, drawing fresh blood. He wasn't a monster. He was suffering. If I left him, he'd die slowly, and the chaos could ripple out. Unbalanced ecosystem, threats to our camp from scavengers drawn to the carnage. No, I couldn't walk away. My hands shook as I pulled out my multi-tool, edging closer to the pit's rim. "Easy," I whispered, more to myself than him. His eyes flicked to me, wild but intelligent. I started prying at the mechanisms, dodging a swipe from his flailing arm that sent rocks flying. Sweat poured down my back, the air thick with his musky scent and the creak of straining metal. Then disaster! The edge crumbled under my weight. I tumbled in, landing hard in the mud beside him, pain shooting through my leg. No way out now. The walls too steep, Kong's thrashing shaking the pit. And worse, distant roars approached, massive shadows stirring in the fog. Other beasts drawn by the noise. I was trapped with a giant death closing in from all sides. And yet I kept working, my fate sealed in this mad gamble. The world narrowed to that crumbling pit, every second stretching like eternity as my tool bit into the final chain, sparks flying in the dim light. Metal groaned, then snapped. Kong surged free, his colossal frame rising like a mountain awakening, dirt and chains clattering to the ground. His roar echoed, low and resonant, shaking the air. I braced, heart frozen, expecting the end. His fury turned on the tiny human at his feet. But he paused, those deep, ancient eyes locking onto mine. Shadows shifted in the fog beyond the pit's rim, giant beasts emerging, massive dinosaurs with armored hides, other apes lumbering forward, their eyes glowing in the twilight, encircling us in a ring of primal power. The ground trembled under their weight, the air thick with their hot, earthy breaths, a chorus of growls building like a storm. Terror clawed at me. I was surrounded, exposed. Then Kong moved, not toward me in anger, but between me and them, his massive back a wall of fur and muscle shielding me. A low rumble built in his chest, vibrating through the earth. Not a threat, but a command, deep, authoritative, laced with something almost protective. He gestured with one enormous hand, sweeping the air, and the beasts hesitated, their heads lowered one by one, retreating into the shadows with reluctant grunts. The jungle fell silent save for our breaths, mine ragged, his steady. Slowly he turned to me. The scent of his fur, rich and wild like damp soil after rain, mingled with the sharp tang of rusted metal from the trap. Warmth radiated from him as he leaned closer, his breath a gentle gust on my face. Those eyes! Intelligent, grateful, holding a depth that pierced my soul. Time stopped. I reached out, tentative, my hand trembling as it met his outstretched palm, rough texture like weathered bark, yet warm, pulsing with life, the strength beneath it humbling. In that touch, a bridge formed, worlds colliding in silent understanding. It was breathtaking, a miracle unfolding, a giant's alliance born of one act of mercy. But the true wonder was just beginning to reveal itself, with Kong's subtle nudge, a gentle push from his hand that lifted me like I weighed nothing. I scrambled out of the pit, my legs shaky, the cool evening air hitting me like a rebirth. I stumbled back toward camp, vines snagging at my clothes, the fog parting just enough to guide my way. My mind reeled, replaying the impossible, the beasts dispersing, that protective stance. When I burst into the clearing, my colleagues surged forward, faces pale with worry, flashlights cutting through the dusk. "Elena, what happened? You were gone for hours." Local guides murmured prayers, eyes wide as I collapsed by the fire, words tumbling out. The trap, Kong, the encirclement, his defense. Skepticism flickered in their gazes at first, but then we returned to the site at dawn. Evidence everywhere. The destroyed trap twisted like scrap, deep footprints of dinosaurs and apes converging in a circle around the pit, then veering away as if commanded. My team dove in, scientists sketching, veterinarians analyzing scraps of fur caught in the chains. They uncovered the rationale amid the wonder. Kong's old scars from territorial fights, weakening him enough to fall into the trap, his blood samples showing stress hormones that explained his vulnerability. But the real blend of magic and science came from the cave we found nearby, ancient paintings, faded but clear, showing early settlers alongside great apes. Protective pacts etched in ochre, suggesting an evolutionary symbiosis where benevolence was recognized and repaid. Drone footage captured the track patterns, irrefutable, beasts approaching, then retreating in unison. Biological samples matched island lore, pheromones in Kong's rumble that could influence kin. "It's not just instinct," one vet said, voice hushed in disbelief. "It's recognition, a cognitive leap." Their analysis validated it all, turning my tale from fantasy to fact, a bridge between the mystical and the measurable, satisfying that nagging doubt, making the miracle feel not just real, but inevitable. Years have slipped by since that night in the pit, but its echoes shape everything. Skull Island, now a protected sanctuary. International media storming the story into headlines that sparked global change. Woman saves Kong. Giant repays with protection. Funds flooded in for megafauna research. Documentaries dissecting animal cognition. My career pivoting to advocacy. Speaking at conferences worldwide about the bonds we ignore at our peril. I've seen policies shift, preserves established, inspired by that one encounter. But the heart of it lingers in quieter ways. Now, Older, wiser, I returned to the island's edge, the fog rolling in like an old friend, the distant rumbles a familiar symphony. There on a cliff amid the beasts, dinosaurs grazing, apes shadowing, he stands, Kong, his form unchanged, vigilant eyes meeting mine across the chasm. A quiet nod, an acknowledgement that needs no words, symbolizing our enduring pact. Tears well as memories flood back, the touch, the protection, the bridge built in vulnerability. It's more than a story. It's a truth we all carry. In courage and empathy, we find connections beyond species, beyond worlds. True strength blooms in trust, in extending a hand across divides. Reach out, viewers. Kindness ripples into miracles you can't imagine. Embrace it and watch the impossible unfold.